Welcome back to the Explainer. So let's just jump right in, because today we're looking at an ancient Egyptian creation myth that, honestly, it sounds a lot like a modern cosmic explosion. Usually when we think of ancient creation stories, we picture like a single god meticulously sculpting the world out of clay, right? But what if I told you one of the oldest creation theories on Earth starts with a chaotic, volatile void, a massive burst of energy, and, well, frog-headed gods? It's a concept that feels incredibly modern, but crazy enough, it was carved into stone thousands of years ago.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start in the City of Eight, meet the primordial gods, break down this whole Egyptian Big Bang, look at four competing creation myths, and finally wrap up with the real-world geography that inspired the whole thing.
So, Section 1, the City of Eight, Hermopolis or Hamunu. The ancient Egyptians actually called this city Klumunu, and that literally translates to the City of the Eight. Now, the Greeks, they later called it Hermopolis because they associated the local god Thoth with their own god Hermes. But the real foundation of the city's identity? It was this eightfold system of gods that predated the world as they knew it. Basically, these people were worshiping the universe before the universe was even a thing.
And this specific group of 8 gods, that's what we call the Ogdoad. The word itself comes from the ancient Greek for the eightfold. Now, get this. The Ogdoad does not represent the harmonious, ordered world of nature that we see today. No way. They represent the universe's volatile, completely chaotic state before creation. Think of it as the dark, infinite, churning void, right before someone flipped the lights on. Moving on to Section 2, meet the primordial gods, the 8 deities. Okay, so what's really fascinating here is how the Egyptians personified the fundamental elements of this pre-creation universe. They put them into pairs, 4 male gods, 4 female consorts. You've got Nan and Naunwe representing the primeval waters, then He and Hauhet, they were eternity or spatial endlessness, Kuk and Kauket embodied the primordial darkness, and finally Amun and Amunet, representing the air or the hidden void. Now don't just memorize these names, think of them as the literal, raw, chaotic ingredients of the universe, just waiting to react. But, Egyptian mythology is pretty much never static. That fourth pair actually shifted names over time depending on who you asked. See, as Amun's popularity exploded, he eventually became king of the gods down in Thebes. His role in the Ogdoad was sometimes completely swapped out. So you might see Jerry and Jerhet representing inactivity, Neo and Neot as the literal void, or Tenem and Tenemet as gloom and disappearance. But catch the pattern here. No matter the specific names, this fourth pair always represented a negative force, just the great, heavy emptiness of the cosmos. And honestly, embracing the sheer, delightful weirdness of ancient myths, the way they visually depicted these deities is fantastic. The male gods were drawn with the heads of frogs, while the female consorts had the heads of serpents. You're probably wondering, why frogs and snakes? Well, they're creatures of the mud, right? Creatures of the primordial swamp. Visually, it just totally reinforces this deep theme of duality, male and female, frog and snake, combining to literally build the foundation of reality. All right, Section 3, an Egyptian Big Bang, explosion of energy. So how exactly did these chaotic, amphibian, and reptilian elements actually interact to create the world? It's like a cosmic recipe. Step 1, these 8 opposing elements are just swirling together in the dark, infinite waters. Step 2, this interaction hits a critical mass and triggers a literal burst of energy, an ancient explosion. Step 3, the sheer force of this blast pushes a primeval mound, they called it the Isle of Flame, right up out of the waters at Hermopolis. And Step 4, from this mound, the sun god is born. He brings the light, he brings the order, and he officially starts the work of creating the world we know. But hey, the Ogdoad's job wasn't quite finished yet. After they jump-started the universe, these 8 gods actually ruled the Earth during a golden age. But eventually, they died, which honestly is a wild concept for primordial deities, and they retired to the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. But they weren't just resting. Down there, they acted as the unseen mechanics of the universe. They were responsible for making sure the Nile kept flowing, the annual floods arrived right on schedule, and the sun rose every single morning. Basically, they moved from center stage right into the cosmic control room. Now, if you think that's the only version of the story, think again. Section 4, 4 myths of creation, competing narratives. This part brilliantly illustrates just how fluid Egyptian mythology could be, because the folks in Hermopolis actually had competing stories about this exact same creation event. Look at these 4 core myths.
Some people said the Ogdoad created an invisible cosmic egg, and from that egg, the bird of light, the sun god Re, hatched. But others, they said a celestial goose named the Gengen ware laid that egg. And then later, when the cult of Thoth got super powerful, they were like, actually, an ibis laid the egg, cleverly absorbing their sacred bird into the ancient local lore. And then there's a fourth version that says, wait, it wasn't an egg at all. Instead, it was a massive lotus flower blooming on a local lake called the Sea of Two Knives.
I gotta say, that lotus variation, it's particularly beautiful. The story goes that when the petals of this primordial lotus finally opened, they revealed a scarab beetle, which is the ultimate Egyptian symbol for the rising sun. This scarab then transforms into a young weeping boy. And get this, it was his tears falling down onto the newly formed earth that literally created the very first human beings. It's just such a staggering transition, you know? Going from this massive, abstract, cosmic explosion all the way down to the intimate, deeply emotional creation of humanity. It's just such a staggering transition, you know? Going from this massive, abstract, cosmic explosion all the way down to the intimate, deeply emotional creation of humanity.
Okay, let's bring it all home. Section 5, Geography of a Myth, Nature as Inspiration.
So to ground this, let's look at a quote from the Hermopolis project. They note, the idea that the world begins when fertile land rises from the water is characterized by the annual Nile floods. Now, this is a massive takeaway for us. This entire creation story, it isn't just some abstract theology that some priests dreamed up in a vacuum. It's a direct, undeniable reflection of the actual physical environment the Egyptians lived in.
When you actually compare them side by side, the connection is absolutely incredible. On the one hand, in the cosmic myth, you have the primeval mound rising from the dark, chaotic waters of Nun to spark the creation of the world. But look at the real geography. Every single year, the chaotic flooding of the Nile recedes. And as those waters drop, what happens? They reveal life-giving, fertile islands of mud. To the ancient Egyptians, this Big Bang wasn't just a one-and-done event from the distant past. It was a literal miracle that they watched repeat in their own backyards, year after year. And man, the locals of Hermopolis were incredibly proud of this fact. They would look out over the numerous little hills rising from their flooded plains and say, see, our topography proves our creation story is the absolute oldest in all of Egypt. For them, the landscape itself was the ultimate historical document. It proved the Ogdoad was the real deal, way above any other competing local myths. So all of this leaves us with a truly fascinating question to ponder as we wrap up today. How much of our most profound human mythology is simply a mirror of our natural geography? And furthermore, since plenty of historians have noted the similarities, how many later religious texts, maybe even the creation accounts found in the Pentateuch, were directly or indirectly inspired by this ancient Egyptian Big Bang? When you picture the waters of chaos separating to form dry land, well, it's hard not to wonder just how far the ripples of the Ogdoad really traveled. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the chaotic waters of Khumunu. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.